Hey, Zoomers. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Excellent. We're just doing a little mic check in the hall too. So we're going to start with the 4 quarters chant, which I believe is on page 30, maybe on page 28, page 30, getting some nods. And for Zoomers, it's in the chat for you. It's also called Suffusion with the Divine Abidings. We call it the 4 quarters chant because we're, the words, we are cultivating a heart of care, and then we're sending it out in all directions, right? And so chanting, if it's a new thing for you, you can feel free to just listen if you don't feel that comfortable with it. If you do feel comfortable, just go for it. It's a simple, repetitive chant. Some of the chants that we like to do at Common Ground are like this, so that we can memorize them if we want to. That makes it easy to pick it up. And we don't have to think too hard about the words. The words, when we chant, it's like singing. You kind of take in the message in a different way, or the whole system, the body, the mind takes it in a little bit differently than when we're just listening or if we're reading or something like that. So we can just trust that our wise body, mind systems are doing that. We don't have to linger on the words. We can just relax into it and just trust that that's already happening. Right? Now let us make the 4 boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide, pervading 1 quarter, with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1 quarter, with a mind imbued with compassion. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1 quarter, with a mind imbued with gladness. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a mind imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. Inviting the energies to settle in their own time, in their own way. Remembering that practice can really be simple. Not so much an acquiring of something, not even an acquiring of information, but more of a setting something down, not picking it up. We're learning to relax and rest, even while the mind's awake, aware, not picking up the bait, not looking for something more interesting or entertaining. Resting into this simple experience of body and mind. This can be felt. Don't need to analyze anything. Just feel it. Trust that it's nature. It's supposed to be like this. Because this is nature. A naturally occurring phenomenon. Causes and conditions coming together like this. It's not your fault or your problem. And knowing this makes it easier just to feel it. Trust it, that it will move in its own time. We don't have to describe it even. We can relax with it. Practice can be this simple. It's like this right now. How is it? How do I know? Oh, I know because I feel it and it feels like this. Give it some space and try to pin it down. Let it do its dance. It's okay to relax with this. Everything moves. Everything's nature. Let's continue in silence now. Free to take a minute or two to stretch your legs if you'd like. Welcome once again. It's good to be here with you all this morning. My name is Shelly Graf. I'm one of the guiding teachers here. Mark is away. He's leading a retreat at Insight Meditation Society, but he'll be back next weekend. Yeah, for you. Yes. Yeah. Actually, Lisa, where are you, Lisa? Would you turn the blower off? You can leave the switch on above the thermostat, but turn the thermostat to auto. That'll help a little bit. One of the difference between Mark and I is that I don't have a voice as strong as his. Yeah. And then the thermostat from on to auto, right beneath it. There we go. That'll help a little. Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to give a talk on something I find quite encouraging and uplifting. I hope you do too, on the topic of dukkha. And I'm not being funny about that. I do find it uplifting. There's a wonderful story in this book, A Heart as Wide as the World. It's a quite old book, but it's quite wonderful. And I would highly recommend it. Sharon Salzberg is the author, one of the founders of Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, kind of our parent organization here at Common Ground. I'll just read it to you. It's called Coming Alive. Not long ago, she says, a friend of mine who is normally a fairly healthy person came down with a terrible case of pneumonia and was very close to dying. Sometime after his illness, I arrived home and found a message from him on my answering machine. Just as I was about to call him back, the phone rang. The caller happened to be a mutual friend. When I told her that I had to get off the phone to call our friend, she said in response, "Do you know that he almost died?" I told her that I did, and we ended the conversation so that I could give him a call. Just as I hung up with her, the phone rang again, and it was another mutual friend. Once more, I told the caller I needed to get off the phone to speak to this friend who was sick, and she immediately said, "Oh, well, do you know he almost died?" When I finally managed to reach my friend, I said, "I think I may now expressly refer to you as he who almost died." My friend replied, "Well, it's better than being known as he who almost lived." "How do you mean that?" I asked. "Do you mean it like he who almost escaped with his life, but at the last moment didn't?" "No," he said, "more in the sense of how we can spend a lifetime almost living rather than being truly alive." Tragically, we may go through a great deal of our lives as if already dead. When we are unaware and disconnected, what could be a vibrant, vivid connection to all of life, with all of its pleasures and pains, becomes a sinking into death, even while alive. Life becomes virtual life. It's funny. This was written in 1997. But the Buddha said, "Those who are heedless or unmindful are as if dead already." Yet some of us, feeling ourselves to be almost living and profoundly wanting to be more fully awake, come to meditation practice for to know ourselves, to be fully alive. We need to cultivate our power of awareness. By practicing meditation, we bring forth some of this splendor and luminosity and power into activities of an ordinary day. We practice meditation to be aware, no matter what we are doing. And the deeper our awareness, the greater the luminosity of our minds. Through meditation, we come to life so as not to someday die as one who almost lived. Yeah. So you might have heard that the Buddha is quoted to have said something like, "I teach one thing and one thing only: suffering and the end of suffering." Right? And then he followed that up with a teaching on the Four Noble Truths. Right? And the Four Noble Truths are the succinct way of organizing all of the teachings. It said that all of everything that the Buddha taught can be found in the Four Noble Truths, which I find so generous of the Buddha, you know. We imagine all the life he lived, right, before he was the Buddha, and all of those moments of pleasure and pain, right? Sometimes we think of the Buddha as having this great, as we should, you know, just this great bountiful mind that's generous and spacious and all of that. And yet we forget that the Buddha suffered, you know. The man who became the Buddha, he struggled, right? And all of those moments when he connected with reality, like, oh, it's like this. And he got confused, or he resisted, or he fought back, or denied it. You know, all those moments are moments when he learned something. Those are moments where he knew suffering and the end of suffering. Yeah. And so there's also this quoted story in which the Buddha held a handful of leaves and said to someone, "Friend, what's more, the leaves in the forest or the leaves in my hand?" And the person said, "Of course, there are more leaves in the forest." And the Buddha said, "Just that way, you know, I know a lot of things, so many things, like all the leaves in the forest, that many things. But all that I teach is like the leaves in my hand, just a succinct amount of stuff, right? This is all that you actually need to know." And we can think of the Four Noble Truths, or this very simple statement, "I teach one thing and one thing only," as a way of the Buddha just helping us get really focused, right? What do you need to know, friends? You want to be awake. You want to live fully, right? Just like I do. You want to live fully, right? With not rejecting any of the pains that life has to offer, bring us, and not holding on to everything that feels good, forgetting that that too is going to end, you know. Well, this is it. This is what we need to know. And so the first noble truth is this noble truth of stress or suffering, or as many ways we can describe it. This kind of impingement or unsatisfactoriness, like it doesn't feel like these things that I have, or these relationships that I have, or this life that I have is everything. It's beautiful and good in moments and hard in moments, but yet something feels like it's not quite, you know, it doesn't quite deliver the goods, right? You ever feel like that? Yeah, this is a really nice meal, but somehow it's just a nice meal, right? So suffering, it comes from the word dukkha, and it translates to this, the description is like a wheel that's out of true with a cart. And so the cart still goes, but it makes a clunky, kind of off kilter experience. Right? So this first noble truth is really bringing us back to how, like, life moves, yes, right? But if we really want to know suffering and the end of suffering, we get in touch with that feeling in our hearts, like something's off, right? And that moment when we go like, oh, this is a great meal, but it's actually just a meal, right? Or this is a wonderful conversation, but it's just a wonderful conversation. Yeah. So the first noble truth really points us back to our own personal experience, the way that we are in this very moment, right? And I'll describe that a little bit more. The second noble truth is telling us that, well, there's a cause. Like when we get that feeling that this isn't quite enough, or this experience is not delivering the goods, right? That kind of constrictedness of heart, or tightness, or suffering, or stress, however we describe that, many, many ways to describe that, right? There's a cause for that. And as much as it seems enticing to blame or to point the finger, like, well, if this were better, or if I had a little bit better food, this would be, or if my boss were a little bit more like that, or if the bus just would go on time, it would be easier, right? As much as that's enticing to do, that's just that's like the mind's quick route to happiness. Like, I know how to fix this problem of stress, find somebody or something that caused it and kill it. I mean, not the person or the thing, but that's how to kill the stress, right? But the Buddha is like, well, there's something more reliable. The reason why the meal isn't satisfying is because we're not seeing the heart that wants the meal to be everything. We're not seeing the heart that wants that pleasantness to last longer than it's going to last, right? That we want the unpleasantness of the bus not coming on time to cease to exist, right? We don't notice that pushing away or that holding on. We don't notice that, right? And so the cause of suffering is craving, right? So there is a cause. It's not what we think. It's not easy to see, but it's not what we think, right? We can't just externalize everything. If we really want to be free, we do the hard thing and we look at the clinging, or we see if it's possible to notice the clinging, the craving, right? And then when we notice that and we're brave enough to feel it, not wallow in it or suffer extra. We're not trying to do that. We're not trying to suffer harder. Remember, it's a misunderstanding that we are living with, right? We think we know suffering, right? I mean, if you ask anybody in all the world, do you know suffering? Everybody would say, of course, right? We do have an idea of suffering, but we don't know how to relate to it differently than we do. Yeah. And so the Four Noble Truths and the Buddha is teaching us, like, the relationship to suffering really matters, right? And when the heart takes it in, understands something about the human predicament, that this isn't actually personal, right? That this is just suffering. The heart of the teachings of the Buddha, it's actually enlivening. It can be, at least for me, to go, aha, right? This is suffering, friend. Right here, it feels like this right here. And when the heart is willing and brave enough to connect with that and not expect the meal to make me happy, like, oh, the cause of suffering right now is because I thought the meal was going to make me happy, right? That's what I thought. I thought this piece of cake was really going to do it for me. And then the cake's over and I'm back to my life, right? Well, that's not that exciting. Yeah. But the problem is not in the cake, right? It's actually in the mind's relationship to the cake, to experience. Yeah. And when the heart learns to connect with that, feel it, not analyze it, but really connect with it and go, oh yeah, what is this all about? It feels like this right now. Oh yeah, it's like this. The heart learns how to set that down because of that willingness to just be there with it. Yeah. Be there with it with love and wisdom, not as an act of resistance, not resisting the experience or the pain, but really willing to take it in a way that's more like living, right? Fully living. Yeah. Not living in these little slices of life, like the slices that we choose, right? But actually all of it in this moment too. And doing the hard thing of understanding it so that the heart goes, oh yeah, this is what the Buddha talked about. I'm suffering, I know that. There's a cause, it's craving. Feel that, let it go, set down that craving. Then we get to the third noble truth, which is the end of craving. Maybe not forever, but in this moment, it can feel so good, right? All of you are like, we're alike in this way. We ruminate, don't we? Yeah, nod your head if you have ever caught yourself ruminating. Zoomers, thank you. I'm not alone here. Yeah. And in some moments, you do not ruminate, right? But we hardly notice those moments, right? When the mind has set down its rumination, it can be brief, but that feeling of relief that's there is the third noble truth. Like, oh, that's the end of craving. In this moment, the heart isn't trying to get anywhere. It's not trying to analyze anything, plan anything, figure it out, not problem solve, not trying to be anybody, not trying to not be anybody. Right? It actually sets something down. And we can really delight in those moments and no matter if we're, for example, sitting for 30 minutes and we think we've ruminated for 29 of those minutes, for that 1 minute when there was for the 1 minute that was spread across 30 minutes, right? In a second here and a second here where the mind dropped its rumination. What a beautiful moment, right? Oh, I want to be awake for that. Don't you want to be awake for that? Aha! The mind knows how to set that down. What a wonderful thing to know, right? So you can be on the lookout for that. I have a story. Well, first I want to say that one of the first noble truth. Oh, so let me just complete the four noble truths. So the third noble truth, I'll go to the fourth just briefly to say that the fourth noble truth is what I think of as the Buddha's great generosity. It's like as if it weren't enough for the Buddha to say, look, friends, suffering and the end of suffering goes like this. Suffering, we feel it hurts, there's cause, there's a way to drop it. As if that's not enough, the Buddha's like, and if you want to cultivate a life where this becomes possible again and again and again, here are 8 ways integrated with one another where it will help us do all of that. So beautiful. I'm like, God, if it weren't enough to already give us the 3, you just laid it out for us in an 8-fold path. It's a beautiful thing. And it will be a time this morning to go through all the steps or all the integrated path factors. Back to the first noble truth. Often translated as there is suffering, right? Have you heard that phrase? Yeah. I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I can go, okay, the 4 noble truths, we've heard this before. It's such a simple thing. Maybe I'm beyond that. But remember, the Buddha said that this is all you need for your whole life. So if we only contemplated the 4 noble truths for our whole life, it would be time well spent. It's all we need, right? So the first noble truth, there is suffering, or perhaps this is suffering, right? There is suffering is a beautiful way to describe the first noble truth, because it can point us to how this is a universal experience for human beings, right? So when we notice that, oh, this is suffering, we don't go, oh, this is my suffering, right? What did I do wrong? How I'm on this, I've been on this path for a while, I've been a meditator, I shouldn't have the experience of suffering. No, you should notice the experience of suffering, right? That's what we should do, right? There is suffering. This is a human predicament. This is what it's like. Human beings, we suffer because we cling. And that's, if we spend our whole lives feeling that and understanding it, it will be time well spent, right? The 4 noble truths. But another wonderful way to describe the first noble truth is that this is suffering, right? Because the Buddha was not trying to make a philosophical statement about suffering and its existence, right? And how the world is created by suffering. The Buddha was trying to help us experience freedom, right? And how if we all take a responsibility for what's moving right here, then it actually creates the world that we want to live in, right? Which is the beautiful thing about Sangha, is that we practice doing that. We practice the 4 noble truths in community. It doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect individuals, but it means we're going to keep showing up, right? How nice. Isn't that? Yeah, I want that. It always feels good to me to come back to common ground for that reason. Like, I don't expect anybody to be perfect here, right? And I don't expect myself to be perfect either, but I do know that in moments, because we're really practicing, we're going to feel what's moving here. We're going to take responsibility for it, right? which is that this is suffering. It's felt right here in this body, like this. Yeah. Not somebody else's responsibility to take care of, not somebody else's responsibility to fix, but this points back to this human experience right here in this very moment, embodied like this, right? And it sounds like such a simple thing, but it is actually the hardest thing to do, to connect with this experience of suffering right here and now. I mean, think of all the ways we dodge that, right? I made a list. I named some of them already. We blame, right? I feel a particular way. Who caused this? Me or you, usually. I avoid it. How are you? I'm fine. Is that true? Right? Just like that. I distract myself with something, even the simple experience of boredom. I catch this all the time. Like I feel that nothing is exciting in or around me. And I go looking for something. And really anything will do, like the paint color or the grains of the wood, you know. I caught myself reading the shampoo bottle in the shower once on a retreat, like, oh, nothing exciting here, right? This will do, right? Any kind of distraction. Another dodge, I criticize myself harshly. Like how many times have we noticed the mind that's ruminating? And immediately when the mind stops ruminating, we don't notice like, oh, the mind has set down its craving right now. But we go, dang it. What's wrong with you, right? Nod your head if you've done that. Yeah, thank you. Yes, self-criticism is such a quick response, right? To not feel the residue of that moment, right? Sometimes the ruminating mind will feel that on the body, right? It'll have a particular flavor. And in that moment, we come face to face with the karmic reality of having been lost in thought, and it feels like this, right? A real beautiful moment to learn something from. Oh, the mind is fully awake to this unpleasant feeling, this residue of having been lost in thought on the body right now. That's it, right? Set down its craving, right? For all that thinking and feeling this right here. What a beautiful, that's exactly what we're being asked to do. This right now, this is the way it is. Right? Or we collapse. This is too hard, right? Or we expect something to do something about it, somebody to do something about it. I'm good for this. I'm crabby because the kitchen looks like this, right? Somebody should have taken care of this so that I'm not crabby. Mm-hmm. Or we analyze the heck out of it. Like, what is the cause of suffering, right? Let me think about this until the end of the day and then read something about it and then write something about it. Like just more analysis. But that actual move to actually feel it, it's like this, something very different. So I was doing a retreat. This was many years ago at this wonderful place. Maybe some of you have been there on the campus of Insight Meditation Society. It's called the Forest Refuge. And it's a place where people can go for a week, 2 weeks, months. Some people can stay or do stay for a year at a time or longer. It's such an ideal. My mind tends to lean towards more aversion than holding on to pleasant experience. It's more like I get the juice in life by seeing what needs to be, what's unfinished, feeling it. So it's dukkha is enlivening for me. Like, oh yeah. And so I'm here in this wonderful place. It's in the woods, yet you walk down the hill, a 15-minute walk down to the road, and there's a wonderful country loop you can walk. It's about an hour long. So you get all the woods and the quietness of nature, no cars, hardly any cars you hear out there. The meals are fantastic. Somebody is making them for us 3 times a day, which in and of itself is great, but it's just good food, a lot of care put into the menu, like what's going to be healthy for the body and keep you nourished and enough protein and, all the ways. And so when you have your own room, I say that already, it's a big perk. of your own room. And I was there, hadn't very excited to be on retreat with these two teachers that I have really enjoyed and got a lot from. Hadn't been on retreat in a while. Maybe I'm painting the picture that I want to right now. And what happens when you get to the forest refuge, or what's affectionately called the FR, you get there and somebody assigned you a service job for the time that you're there. And you do the same service job every day. So I got assigned the job of washing and cutting lettuce. Simple. I was like, yeah, great. 40 minutes. Take the lettuce that came in from the organic farmer, right? All the heads of lettuce, beautiful thing. Appreciate that. Fill the tubs of water, wash the lettuce, empty the tub, put it in the other bath, do it a second time, take the lettuce out, lay it out to dry, chop it into squares that we can eat for lunch. Simple, right? Well, not too long after my lettuce job commenced, it became Dukkha City. It was like, whoa, and it was so easy to see, like, where is this agitation? Is it in this organization that can't get it together and needs some revamping of its policies and procedures and structures? Is it in the person who is the agitation in the person who described the yogi job to me and wasn't clear enough? Is it in the gardener who, maybe did or didn't do something? Right? That's it. That's where we put the experience. We put the experience there in the external all the time. But in this very ideal setting, it was so easy to see, like, wait a minute, this dukkha is right here, right? The Dukkha City was like, all the lights and sounds were all saying the same thing, like, you're not a good lettuce washer. What is wrong with you? Yeah. Don't you want to be better than this? Like, this is a simple job. Just wash the lettuce. Are you sure you got all of the grit out? Oh no, somebody's going to notice that you didn't. Is this bucket full enough? Is it over full? Oh my God, somebody's going to notice that this bucket isn't full enough, right? Oh, I did a great job. I am the good lettuce washer today. Maybe somebody will notice what a delicious job I just did. Maybe it will actually make their meditation better, that they ate this wonderfully cut lettuce. Yeah. Just on and on and on, right? The Buddha said there are 3 kinds of craving, right? 3 kinds of dukkha, you might say. The dukkha that is like craving for what feels good, tastes good, looks good, right? Sense pleasures. The craving of wanting to be somebody, right? I want to be a good lettuce washer, right? I want this to be a pleasant job. Or the opposite of wanting to be someone, I want to get rid of being a bad lettuce washer, or, right? The craving for not becoming, non-becoming. Yeah. And those all go together, right? And will arise at any moment. Even the simplest, most ordinary moments are good moments for noticing. I would love to sit here and say it was one Dukkha City day. But those habits are relentless, friends. It was Dukkha City after Dukkha City after Dukkha City, day on end, right? No shortage of opportunity to understand the Four Noble Truths, right? And it can seem like, that relentless nature of the habits of our minds, right? We would like to notice them once or twice and then see them uprooted and eradicated, wouldn't we? It can feel, we can judge ourselves so harshly about noticing habits that arise again and again and again. But actually, it's good news, because those habits are always weakening when we see them, when we connect with them, when we understand them differently than we have in the past, remembering that the way we usually relate to suffering is so different than the way the Buddha is asking us to relate to suffering, right? Or suggesting that we connect with the way it actually feels right here in the body, right? That we understand it differently, that we see its impersonal nature, we see its movement, right? And it's in doing that again and again and again that those habits become weaker. And it's not, I mean, I've learned from Mark over the years, he's often said that the great fruits of practice are learning how to take your habits a little less seriously. Not that they go away completely, right? Not that they go away completely. But these habits of mind are habits that go unnoticed in our daily lives, right? That wanting to be good at my whole worth is about being good at anything, right? That's not a Shelly thing. That's a human thing, right? It's easy to talk about because it's fine. It's just life. Yeah. And the heart's willingness to keep connecting in the most ordinary of ways, right? To really take responsibility for the learning, even in a moment of washing lettuce, right? It could have been easy to say, well, I'll just think about something exciting and get through this job that really sucks, right? And then I'll move on. I'll go back to the hall and I'll sit and I'll call that my practice time, right? But all the moments in our lives when we're just doing ordinary things, those are all the right moments for practice there too. And what happens is the mind gets good at settling because the experience of dukkha is subtle, right? It's not easy to notice. We might notice the big moments, right? But all those small moments, it's not that easy, right? So the role of samadhi is to help us be able to feel and connect in all of those moments, in all of those ways, right? And so as if the lettuce experience wasn't enough, there was more learning on this retreat for me. And I noticed that, so at the forest refuge, there are 2 talks a week. There are instructions in the morning, but just 2 talks a week, right? One from each teacher. And it's really it's so hard not to look forward to it, right? The main event. And each time I would go into the hall, it would be the same thing. I'd feel restless, angsty, hard to attend, couldn't be there. Like, what's up with this? I'm very confused about the experience, but just did my best to be with it. Like, oh yeah, restlessness is like this, right? It's like not having any concentration is like this, right? Feeling confused is like this. Making a story of it is like this. Judging myself is like this, right? Just moment by moment in this very ordinary way. Until one day there was enough settledness of mind that I was sitting there and the same thing was happening. And I noticed the thought, oh, I can never do that. And I was like, aha, right? And in that moment of noticing the thought, what happened to the experience of restlessness? What is that? It got a little bit less, right? So those thoughts, those beliefs, those views are really shaping our experience over and over and over. But just like dukkha is hard to connect with because it's subtle, so are views and beliefs. We don't see the way they are shaping the way we live all the time, right? Big moments we do, but not all the little moments, right? So just that thought, I could never understand something like this. I could never articulate it like this. I could never do this. Whatever that meant, right? Was just an experience of recognizing a belief in the mind, a limiting belief, probably a belief that shapes many, many moments in life, not just that one, right? Coming to the surface. And that enlivening nature, finally being able to see it and see something about suffering, like, oh, all of this restlessness, I just thought it was restlessness, something wrong with me being restless in this moment, right? Wrong understanding about this, but not knowing that that belief had a big influence on the system's restlessness. And there wasn't enough settledness of mind, enough samadhi to actually notice that view that came to the surface eventually, right? So just some encouragement to hang in there. It's okay if we don't understand, if we don't see, if it doesn't make any sense, it's really fine because that's how we keep learning, right? With time and with patience and persistence, it just keeps going. I'll read this quote from the Buddha. Maybe. The Buddha says, what is the noble truth of the origin of suffering? It is craving which renews being, right? The sense of I am, renews being, and is accompanied by relish and lust. Not just any kind of desire, right? But this intense, like, I want to be somebody right now. That kind of relish and lust. Relishing this and that. In other words, craving for sensual desires, first kind of craving. Craving for being, becoming, second kind of craving. Craving for non-being, non-becoming, third kind of craving. But whereon does this craving arise and flourish? Wherever there is what seems lovable and gratifying, there it arises and it flourishes. I'll just read that again since I added a little bit of my descriptors. What is the noble truth of the origin of suffering? It is craving which renews being and is accompanied by relish and lust. Relishing this and that. In other words, craving for sensual desires, craving for being, craving for non-being. But whereon does this craving arise and flourish? Wherever there is what seems lovable and gratifying, there it arises and flourishes. Yeah. So thanks everybody for your kind attention today. A couple of announcements. If any of you are regular attenders, some of you on Zoom might sometimes participate in person and sometimes on Zoom. So for everybody, we are looking for a few more people that would be willing to be a program host like Lisa is today. Lisa's been a program host for many years. And so if you have any questions about what that means, usually coming early and setting up and being available to answer questions and greet people and some other aspects, you can talk to Lisa afterwards. You could talk to me. You could also talk to Robin Major, who is our fantastic office manager in the room here today. And Zoomers, you can send me an email or type it in the chat if you're interested or want more information. One of us, Robin or I, will reach out to you. In the fall, which is right around the corner, we'll be starting up our children's programs again. So if you've had experience with children and would like to help out with those programs, we're looking for a few more volunteers. It makes it so parents don't have to do it, which is nice. Parents can get a little break from caregiving and just come into the room and hear the Dharma. It's really a nice gift. And we're trying to make, things a little more accessible for our parents. So if you know any parents in the community who have young children, you can tell them that they're welcome to even bring their kids into the hall on Sunday mornings. They can have an iPad, or if they're independent enough, they can sit in the community room and read or do something independently. We're happy about that. We have space here for nursing parents too. If they need to step out and nurse, also, if you have babes in arms, you can bring them into the hall. And then the very last thing is I think we have small groups today. So Lisa will help those of you who are interested in staying and discussing this or other aspects of practice, just hang out and find Lisa. And online, I think there's someone here, perhaps Lucy, maybe?
I'm here. Hi, Shelly.
Yeah, Lucy, I'm going to transfer host to Lucy now. All right, friends, take care. Bye.
Thanks, Shelly.